Today is gonna be another day for Last Words Shadow. I've already made like one video on this deck like early in the expansion, but I mean I played this deck more than like any other deck in this expansion by a far wide margin, so I thought today I'd go a bit more in depth into what I've been thinking about when I play this deck, since it's such a complicated deck, although it's like a temporary deck that's given for free to new players. It's also one of the harder decks to play right now, so I mean might as well make a video on it, right, and go in depth. I'm gonna talk a bit more about the list than I usually do, so if you just want to skip to the games, you can do that. I'll probably have a timestamp somewhere in the description or something. But yeah, let's talk about the list first. So this is the list that I play. It's obviously not the only correct answer list, but it's the list that I prefer. So let's talk about how this list works. So, of course, Last Word Shadow is built around Last Words. You have your key cards, Dark Alice. Dark Alice is a very card with a lot of text, but basically she crystallizes 2, calm down 3. Whenever an allied neutral follower comes into play, her countdown is accelerated, and then when her crystallized amulet pops, she summons herself, and then she has Rush, and she has Last Words to put herself back into your hand. And then she can't be evolved by evil points, and then when she comes into play, if you have at least 10 Last Words, destroy it. Then she will evolve by herself, and then she will have Storm. And then when her evolved form is destroyed, she goes back into the amulet and then subtracts 1, so you can basically, once you reach 10 Last Words, you can just keep spamming her out over and over for a bunch of 5 damage storms. And that's basically what the design for this card is, and that's what the deck is built around. To help with that, we also have Instant Death, which will be able to destroy all other cards, including your own cards, when you have 10 allied cards with Last Words destroyed. So this is used to pop your amulets mainly. And of course, Dark Alice are not the only source of damage, because even though she does quite a bit of damage, it's a bit hard to finish the game with just her. So we also run 3 of the Abyssal Kernel, which is the original support that was released with Instant Death, and the original Crystallize that summons a Storm. So this is like sort of like a Dark Alice, but just like not useful in the early game. And these are your key damage cards. The rest of those cards are supporting cards to help you reach Last Words. So we have the Exhumer, which will summon 2 neutral followers that cost 2 or less from your deck. In this deck, we only run Angel of War and Aldous, so they are both Last Words followers. So this will always summon those 2, which means that this is basically 3 Last Words for 2 PP. Because when you evolve, she summons another one, and she recovers 1 play point. So yeah, and she's also a Last Words herself, so that's pretty good. Very strong Last Words card. And then we have the Grey Void Knight here. The Grey Void Knight helps you search out Last Words Shadowcraft cards with its fusion effect. The transmute effect is like okay, but the main body is also quite useful for healing. But the transmute effect is like okay, you hardly ever use it, but it can win you some games. And then and then we have Ruler of the Necropolis here, which is another support to help you get a Last Words, accelerate 1 to destroy an allied follower, and then reanimate 2 for neutrals. As you can see here, all our neutrals are all Last Words followers, so this will basically summon a Last Words for 1 PP. And then help you destroy your own followers, so you can destroy your own Dark Alice to get it off the board and back, so you can crystallize her again. Or you can just use it to destroy your own Last Words if your opponent won't do it for you. And then it gives that farm follower Last Words to draw a card. The draw card is obviously valuable because she replaces herself. Her main body effect is pretty strong, but not very often used. I would say that you generally lean towards using the Accelerate over the main body if you can help it, because the main body is very bad for Last Words efficiency, being a 4 PP to summon 2 Last Words. So yeah, that is those are those cards. And then we can look at some of our neutral cards. We have Twofold Grace here, which is summons either Amaterasu or Tsukiyomi, and then each of these 2 followers have a Last Words to summon the other one, so they will recur infinitely between each other as long as you keep destroying them. The Angel of War Starlish Saint are the best neutral followers probably for this deck right now. The reason why I run 3 of one of them and 2 of the other is so that Evil Exhumer is a little less random in what it pulls out. You can run 3 all this 2 Angel of War if you want to summon all this more often than you want to summon Angel of War, or if you don't mind not having it like more weighted, you can just run 3 of each, and that will help you have more followers and also draw your neutral followers a little easier. So there's that consideration. Valkyria Lance is another neutral card. It will, with Last Words, it cycles itself and it can destroy it pretty easily, so it's pretty good. And then we have Asvault, which is another neutral, and this thing is an amulet with Last Words, so it can't be banished, which makes it very valuable against cards with banishes and transforms. And then it draws you a Condemned card, which in this deck is either another copy of Asvault, Abyssal Kernel, or Instant Dead. So basically what this deck aims to do is destroy a bunch of Last Words cards and then use Dark Alice and Abyssal Kernel to kill your opponent after you are ready. And then Bright Night Terrors, destroy an allied follower, draw 2 cards. But this Apple's a very strong, stupid strong card. If you use it on a Shadow follower, it summons another copy of it when it dies. So if you use it on Dark Alice, it will just multiply on Dark Alice. And if you use it on a neutral follower, it draws 2 cards, and then it also gives at least 5 allied cards with Last Words. With Destroy, you give it Rush and Bane, which is pretty useful against Buff Dragon and other decks with big followers. So there are some tech cards that aren't like as standard in this deck, so let's talk about those. I run one of Hellfire Strike. Hellfire Strike helps you clear your opponent's board, and it helps you ping a little bit of damage. It also helps you spend 1 PP, which is surprisingly useful. But the main use is it helps you get rid of damage shield from Enhanced Portal as well, which is like the main reason why I put it in the first place. It's just to deal with the damage shield. Of course it has other uses as well, but the main reason I put it in there is just to pop the damage shield. And then we run with the Corpse Crusher. I run 1 of this. Accelerate 0's Necromancy for to summon a zombie with Last Words. This card, if you run too many copies of this card, you will just run out of hand cards, so I only run 1 copy. It's useful for being 0 cost to summon the Last Word, who can help you reach 10 if your hand isn't super strong, or it can also help you get you a body to use cards like Night Terrors or Ruler of the Necropolis or Slayer of the Dead on, so that's another reason to run it. It pings 1 damage as well, which can kind of help you get rid of a damage shield. And then finally we have Slayer of the Dead. Slayer of the Dead is a card that makes me feel it's like a safety card, you know. You have this card, you feel quite safe because you have ways to destroy your own followers if your opponent doesn't do it for you. You can destroy 2 followers with 1 card. It also summons ghosts, you can do a bit of damage, evolves for free, so you can save evil points, which is fairly valuable when a lot of decks in the current meta have at least 1 card that is built around whether you have more evil points than your opponent or not. And then it can enable some OTKs with Dark Alice and Instant Dead. Like 2 copies of Dark Alice with this can and Instant Dead can usually enable some kind of OTK. So there's that to take care of, which is why we run the 1 of this. So that is the list I'm running. I mean, it's not the be-all end-all of this, of course. If you have other cards you want to run, you can go ahead and run those. But this is the one I feel comfortable playing. It's the one I've played the most. So now that I've spent like way too long talking about the list, let's look at some games. So our first game will be against Dragon, and we are going first. Dragon is the most popular class right now on the ladder. And different from my usual videos, I think I'm gonna go a bit more in-depth about everything that I'm thinking about. So let's start with the mulligan. So for the mulligan, I usually keep things simple. I just look for the same few cards. I like to keep Valkyria Lance, Angel of War, Asvault, Twofold Grace, Dark Alice, and the Evil Exhumer, and the rest I just toss. So none of those are in my hand, so I just toss them. So we pick up a nice hand here, and then for your early game goals, generally it depends a bit on what your opponent is doing, but you will want to aim for Last Words 10 by turn 6 is usually the time that it's should be active. So yeah, so the first thing we need to talk about here is what do we play on this turn. So we know they are playing Buff Dragon because we saw the Gunbane. So the choices are between Twofold Grace and Angel of War here. Angel of War notably has Fountain of Angels, which is a amulet that has countdown 2 and draws a card. So because it has countdown 2, it can definitely get in the way in the late game. So you want to get it out early game. So that's definitely worth considering. Against Buff Dragon though, they do play body. So what you can do is you play Amaterasu here, and then when your opponent plays a follower, you can trade with Angel of War, and then you can use the Fount of Angels you get to hit your opponent's face harder, or you can use the clear because they have, if they play something like, I believe they will play it here, so we will see. They do play the Mega Lorca Rider here. It has 3 health, so you can see we can play Angel of War, trade it, and then use the Fount of Angels and trade into this. Clear it. There is of course the option of going face and then using, just ignoring this, but yeah. So I was saying earlier, the consideration for Angel of War, in this case, since Buff Dragon does play bodies for us, it doesn't really matter. But if this was something like maybe Magachio Forest or for a deck that didn't really play followers in the early game, probably would have been better to play Angel of War last turn and then hit face and then use the Ruler Necropolis to pop it so that I can get the Fount of Angels out early so that I can get it to draw cards. But since they have bodies, I don't need the... I can just do this, yeah. So I'm just gonna trade the Angel of War here. We buff the Amaterasu. So the consideration between hitting face and hitting the Mega Lorca Rider is that leaving them follower. Buff Dragon deals a lot of damage, so even if it's just 1 damage, you want to minimize the amount of damage we take as much as we can. So we're gonna trade. So there's their Coach Joe. And then they have Dion here, so they are going to clear my Amaterasu. Unfortunately, I have no way to clear the Dion here. So it's going to be my turn. So there's only really Asval to play here. Asval is in a similar boat to Fount of Angels when you're going first. It's a countdown 2 amulet that draws, so you want to play early. And then usually if you have 2 PP left over, you can just go ahead and pop down Abyssal Kernel, which I do here, but just keep in mind that you need board space. Generally, having 3 open board space is good enough. So here we know Fount of Angel is gonna pop next turn, so we just play the Asval and the Abyssal Kernel here is fine because next turn this will pop and give us 3 board space to work with. So yeah, we're just gonna pass. We take some damage from the Dion here, but nothing much you can do about that. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to clear it. So they're gonna play the Askan Shiori and their Coach Joe. And then just use another worm crafting here, which will buff more cards for them. And then we'll just take damage. They didn't evolve there, so that's good for us. So here comes the Tsukiyomi here, which we did plan. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but the reason why we pick Amaterasu early on is just because Tsukiyomi is useful in the mid game against Buff Dragon for helping you clear the big followers. So we're just gonna go ahead and trade into the thing to get Tsukiyomi in rotation, so we get Amaterasu next. And then we're just gonna use this, we can get another Tsukiyomi out. The reason why we went for Tsukiyomi is just to trade. Yeah. And then we use the Ruler Necropolis here just to... as I said before, we don't want to play the main body. It's not very last efficient. If you look at this, we're at 5 now, so we're going pretty good. So we use the Accelerate instead because the Accelerate is much more efficient. Then I play the Lance here. The reason why I didn't play the Lance before the Accelerate is because Amaterasu, you don't need to rush right now, right? So the only difference this will make is whether this has 3 or 2 attack, but this can buff any neutral follower, so it doesn't really matter that much. If you think about it this way, if you top deck something like all this, for example, we want to be able to use our all this next turn, so the Lance is more useful in that regard, so we play the Lance after the Amaterasu. Of course, it is a bit concerning that we don't have a neutral follower card in hand, so the Lance may be useless, but since we have Tsukiyomi's effect, worst case, on turn 7 we will summon Amaterasu, and Amaterasu will be able to rush with the Lance. But they have 3 lucky mermaids here apparently, which is pretty scary. Not really, but... So here we are at 7 Last Words Destroyed. This will be 8, so now we can afford to use the Ruler of the Necropolis here. The Ruler of the Necropolis will also help us to refill our hand. because it's very bad. So summon the Amaterasu here, but thanks to the lands, it gets rush. We don't really need Exhumer in the late game. Exhumer's pretty useless in the late game, so we're just gonna use Void Knight to trade it for a better Last Words follower, or so I hoped, but I got another Exhumer out of it. So we're gonna go ahead and answer their board here. Use the apple to clear it just because I don't want to take too much damage until I see enough damage to OTK them in my hand, which I don't. We draw another Void Knight, so we use it to trade. I feel like I should have used the Exhumer instead of that, but I guess it doesn't matter. So now we have assembled some nice damage. We're at Last Words 10, we can start doing a lot of damage to them. We activated this just to get it out of our hand. So out comes their Joe, which is not ideal for us. We take a lot of damage to heal. We need instant death for these kinds of boards, so out comes these two. We don't really need them, so we're gonna trade one here. We always gotta watch out for Dark Alice from turn 7 onwards, cause she costs 7 PP. So if you play her for 7, you might fail to crystallize her, which you don't want to do. So we went for a Colonel first, right? And then the Dark Alice, and then we use instant death to get rid of that board while popping out our damage. So here is an interesting spot for us because we have to think about what we can watch out for and what we don't have to watch out for. Let's think about what our opponent has. So from this spot, we don't really have to worry about Storm damage because realistically Storm is not getting through these two kernels. So what we do have to worry about is effect damage and banishes. So for banishes, they will have the Coral Spirit, which can banish Dark Alice. So one of the considerations would be to use Night Terrors on Dark Alice to put her back into her amulet, so that Coral Spirit can't banish her. Problem with that is that, or rather than problem with that is that we have 2 Dark Alices in hand already, so it's not that important for us to save this one. Generally 2 Dark Alice is usually enough for you to close out games, unless it's like against Forest or like something with a very high max HP, but in this case this is neither, so we don't really care if they banish Dark Alice. What is interesting here is that the other thing we have to worry about is of course Joe, because Joe does pure effect damage. What they can do is play Joe and evolve it, and then we will take 12 damage and die. So this is an interesting tech. Well, I think it's interesting. Maybe you might disagree, but interesting technical play you can make to deal with Joe here is that, well, first we attack them. So I play Night Terrors here, but I play on the Abyssal Kernel. I put my Abyssal Kernel at 1 health so that if they play Joe, the AoE damage will pump the Kernel. And then hopefully the Kernel can snipe the Joe and save me from dying to it. So that is the idea behind this, but they don't have Joe, so that ended up not mattering very much. There's the Alice from them. And then they're gonna go ahead and use their Alice to and the Striker to clear my Kernel, which is fine for us. It buys us a turn. And then they have the Coral Spirit, which does banish our Dark Alice, but as I said earlier, we only really need 2 if you look at their health. So here we have enough. We have instant death in hand, so we're just gonna go ahead and use the Void Knight just to get below 7 PP so that we can crystallize our Dark Alices. They'll go ahead and pop it with instant death. And that is game. So yeah, this Buff Dragon is a fairly popular deck right now, and we have a decent matchup into it, so yeah, it's worth considering this deck for that reason. Next game. So for our next game, we are going second against Portal. Portal has like 3 decks to play, so we don't really know what they are. We go for the same mulligan, so we keep the lands and asphalt. So our first goal against Portal is to figure out what deck they're playing by what. Actually, Portal has a lot of decks right now. I just realized this, but until we figure out what deck they're, we're just gonna play our cards. We can just pop down the asphalt. No, we pop down the Angel of War here. Angel of War we'll get out. We want to get our Fount of Angels as quickly as possible, as well as less priority play when you're going second, because if you have more evil points, it just pops instantly anyway. So we want to get the Fount of Angels, and since they don't have any followers on board, playing Angel of War will also be able to pressure their face for damage. And it also lines up more nicely next turn by playing Ruler of the Necropolis. But they play the Angel of Darkness here, so they will be able to trade. So Angel of Darkness, playing Angel of Darkness, even control decks don't really run Angel of Darkness. This is most likely Enhanced Portal is what we're expecting. Enhanced was newly buffed, so it has like a decent amount of popularity right now, so yeah. So we're just gonna go ahead and pop down our amulets here with Fount of Angels and Asvault. You could go for a twofold Grace here, but I mean, you might as well use the follower for when you can use it for something. Although Asvault does pop instantly, it's still a 2 play point amulet that doesn't affect the board in any way, so it's better to use Asvault early on when your opponent's not applying much pressure, because Enhanced Portal doesn't apply pressure early on. Once they start having their Cutthroat active is when their pressure starts mounting, so yeah. We're gonna go ahead and use the Amaterasu here. We don't play the lands, again similar reason to what we mentioned before. There is no reason to go for the lands right now when we don't need the rush. And we'll just go ahead and pop this for just to get some last words going and get the draw. We're going to play the lands here and then Corpse Crusher. We have all this in this case, so the lands are even more valuable to be played late because we can just play all this and pop it with all this. And they are going to go ahead and discharge followers. Look at our last words, now we're at 5, this is 8, so we are pretty good on that front. So we pop a bunch, hopefully draw some good cards. We don't find Dark Alice, which is always concerning. We're gonna go ahead and use the Asvault to draw here while we still can. Unfortunately, we draw a bunch of Abyssal Kernels. And then the consideration here is whether to evolve all this or not. I chose to use the apple to draw instead because I want to find Dark Alice. As strong as Kernel is, it's pretty hard to win a game on only Kernels, because once they deal with your 3 Kernels, you need to find Dark Alice anyway, so you might as well start looking for Dark Alice early. So a bit of a slow turn from them. They heal a bit, draw a bunch of cards. And here, I don't think I do. Obviously I could just Kernel and then just instant that here and go face, but my concern is that if they can answer that, I am screwed. So my priority here is still to find Dark Alice, so I go for Slayer of the Dead here just to draw 2 cards. I can't tell you if this is the correct answer or not, but this is what I think was correct. Just because I need to find Dark Alice to win. They have a lot of damage shield, so even if I pop down Kernels, put a bit of damage on them, they can just heal it up anyway. So I'm prioritizing more big burst damage by trying to find Dark Alice. Fusing Night Terrors is always a bit of a reluctant. I'm a bit reluctant to do it usually, but in this case my hand is pretty full anyway, so I don't really need that many Night Terrors to draw cards. So I'm just go ahead and fuse the Night Terrors. We thankfully pick up Dark Alice here, so we can start. I think. I believe there is actually a lethal here that I just missed. If you go this. Yeah, there is lethal here, but I think I missed it. So for the sake of completion, I guess it's if you play Valkyrie's lands, crystallize Dark Alice, instant that, hit face, evolve the Kernel, hit face with everything, play Apple on the Dark Alice, and then use Night Terrors on the Dark Alice to summon another one out with the Apple, it would be lethal. But unfortunately, I missed it here. So here I decide to just go for Dark Alice and Kernel, and just burst them for a bunch of damage. And so the goal here is, while they don't have a damage shield, I'm gonna burst them for as much damage as I can. And then we're going to go ahead and finish them next turn. So that's the plan. So we'll go ahead and evolve the Kernel to maximize damage. This puts them at, I believe, 1. And then at 8 PP, we gotta watch out for the satellite. Not satellite, the Interstellar Battle Cruiser. So we're gonna go ahead and use Night Terrors on our Dark Alice so it can dodge the banish. And then we're just gonna try to find more cards. Our hand's pretty bad, but I mean with one Dark Alice and them at 5, I should be fine. I just need either the Dark Alice or the Apple to survive this Battle Cruiser. Yeah, so that's the Battle Cruiser we were expecting. Judith gives them a damage shield. You can just pop up with 2-fold Grace, so it's fine. Okay, they heal up to 5. Heal up 5. They had to heal up to 6 there to be like within a safe range, but since they're only at 5, we can just play Dark Alice and then just hit face and hit face, but I just used that. So yeah, that's it for this game. Go for the next one. Our last game for today will be against Shadow, and we are going first. Shadow has 2 decks. It has Last Words and his Fusion, so we don't know which one they are playing, but once again for the mulligan we keep Asval and Angel of War. Having a bunch of amulets is good against Shadow. Because if it's Fusion, we don't want to give them trade targets for their Helios. If it's Last Words, we don't want to give them trade targets for their Last Words. So we're just going to go ahead and pop down the lands here, nothing else to do. And they pass, so we don't know what they are yet. Once again, we play the Angel of War here, which will apply pressure from their face, and if they clear the Angel of War, it will give us the Fount of Angels to play. So there's the 2-fold Grace, so now that we know they are Last Words, we pick up the Fount of Angels here again. We're just gonna play the Angels and Asval, it's pretty standard. Lands we can pop at any time, so I think playing Fount of Angels is the higher priority. So there's their Dark Alice, we don't have our Dark Alice. And then here, once again we have nothing to do, we're gonna pop on the Asval. These two will pop next turn, so we're gonna pop on the lands to deal with whatever they play next turn. I think playing Colonel might not have been bad, but we played the lands there, which is fine. So the reason why I played the Hellfire Strike there is because one, to get it, you can generate 1 shadow out of it for Void Knight. 2, and the more realistic reason is we're gonna draw 2 cards here, 3 cards here, and then because we have nothing else, we are probably gonna evolve Ruler of the Necropolis here, which will draw a bunch of cards, especially with our destroyed neutral being Angel of War. Each Angel of War will become 2 cards from Ruler of Necropolis, so we're playing the Hellfire Strike just to make hand space. There's that Istan there, so they did play Istan here, which is good for us. Plus, that's a pretty bad play for them. And they just pass, so the Dark Alice stays in the amulet. So let's look at our Last Words here. We are at 4. With these 2, we are basically at 6. We need 3 more, so Ruler of Necropolis will not get us there. We drew a bunch of neutral cards anyway, so we don't really need to play neutral. Ruler of Necropolis here, so we're gonna play all this here. And then we're gonna get us the Tsukiyomi in rotation as well. Go ahead and destroy that for a nice 10 Last Words. I should definitely mention this. The reason why we accelerate Ruler of the Necropolis before we trade all this is because if you look at our destroyed followers, we had Angel of War and Tsukiyomi. So if we traded all this first, there was a chance that Ruler of the Necropolis would have summoned all this, and then that wouldn't allow me to clear their board fully because I would have to evolve to clear it, and I don't want to evolve because if I evolve, I put myself at less evil points than them, so they can play Asphalt. So because of that, we accelerate first. So the Ruler of Necropolis will guaranteed reanimate a 2-attack rush, which will guarantee we can clear the board. And this way we also leave our board empty, so they have no trade targets for their stuff like Dark Alice. And because they can't trade the Dark Alice, they can't get it crystallized. So in terms of Last Words, we are very much ahead of them. In terms of yeah, but we don't have enough damage, so that's the problem we're having right now. So the first thing we should do here when against Last Words, if we look at their Last Words, they're at 6, which means that they can't do anything right now unless I destroy their followers. In this case, we count how much damage they have on their board. This is going to be 6, 9, 11, 13. With an evo, it's 15. So they have a lot of damage on our board. We don't really want to. Board locking is a consideration, but I'm pretty sure I will end up dying if I try to board lock them here. So we're just gonna go ahead and crystallize. First, we need to find our finishers. Okay, we pick up Dark Alice there, which is nice. I'm gonna go ahead and crystallize the Dark Alice. I believe I use instant that here to clear, right? Because I don't want to take however many billion damage that was on their board. Since we are also Last Word Shadow, we know how much damage they can deal. On 6 BP, Last Word Shadow generally can only deal 10 damage, so we know we are safe to just go ahead and remove their board and start dealing damage. Out comes their Skill-Me. And then they use a Void Knight here. I don't know why they transmuted, it's really beyond me. And go ahead and use 2 Fount of Angels, and then what my opponent does here is I think very worth taking note of. Is they played the Fount of Angels first before their instant death. The reason why you do that is because instant death will instantly pop them, so you can trade them in for draws if you don't need the extra damage. Because if you play them normally, they have countdown 2, right, which will get in the way. So if you play them alongside instant death, you can just go ahead and trade them in for draws instantly for a much better outcome. And then we'll just take some damage, it's fine. And then we just have lethal here, so... Wait, we don't have lethal here. Actually, no. We do have lethal here. But I think I missed it. So if you play Poison Apple on the Dark Alice, you trade the Dark Alice. Then you hit their face with the Dark Alice. Fount of Angels plus Angel of... Wait, not Fount of Angels. Angel of War and then Fount of Angels is lethal. But I didn't notice it. So I actually misplayed here by hitting face here. And I used the apple here. I didn't realize if I just trade that I would have lethal. So I fused to try and find instant death. And because I'm a good player, I just draw instant death here. So yeah. So obviously it's pretty lucky to actually instant death here. I had lethal here but I missed it. Even if I didn't, I should probably mention, even if I didn't draw the instant death here, I wouldn't have been fine. Okay, use Grace Void Knight to clear the Dark Alice, put it back in the amulet. This is at turn 8, so in the next turn it doesn't come out yet. And then I can crystallize Abyssal Kernel. Abyssal Kernel is very strong in the mirror because if you put it down as an amulet, when your opponent plays instant that they will pop your kernel. And then they will have to deal with the ward. So yeah, it's definitely worth noting here. It doesn't come out in this game unfortunately, but it's definitely worth noting that you can do that. So here I just play Dark Alice instant and have lethal, but a bit of overkill for me here, but yeah, just keep in mind Abyssal Kernel is definitely very valuable, and also make sure you count and don't miss your lethals. Yeah, that's it for this game, and that's it for this game. That's it for this video. This is all the games I have for you today. Definitely much longer than my usual stuff. I thought I'd go a bit more in depth since it's such a complicated deck and I've played so much of it. I definitely wouldn't claim to be an expert. Originally I wanted to make like a two-hour comprehensive guide on this deck, but as I was writing the script for it, I kept realizing that every day I learn new things about this deck that I want to add in. I just can't reach like a state where I'm happy with the script because I just have to keep editing it. So I gave up on that, and instead what I decided to do was just to make a video that's like less of a guide and more of my thought process on the deck, and hopefully this will help you approach the deck better and then learn how to play the deck yourself. And then once you are better than me, you can tell me how many times I've misplayed in this video. So yeah, that was my goal and I hopefully accomplished it. Hopefully this deck is probably a bit intimidating for new players, so hopefully I helped make it more approachable for you if you are a new player picking up this deck from the temporary deck, or if you are just someone who wants to play this deck but don't really understand how. Yeah, that's it for this video. I hope it was informative. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the... Oh, right, I should probably mention I'm probably not touching this game until like the mini, so if you see me doing other things besides Shadowverse in the next few days, it's because I just don't feel like playing this game right now until the mini. So yeah, that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, that's it. See you next time. Bye bye.